The cafe and the truth. The afternoon sun filtered through the wide windows of the morning cup, casting golden rectangles across the polished wooden floors. The cafe smelled of fresh ground coffee and cinnamon rolls, warm and inviting. Outside, autumn leaves drifted past on a gentle breeze, painting the sidewalk in shades of amber and red. Sarah Mitchell wiped down the counter with practiced motions, her movements smooth and efficient from years of repetition. She had opened this cafe 3 years ago, pouring every bit of her savings and her heart into creating a space that felt like home. The exposed brick walls held local artwork. Soft jazz played from speakers tucked discreetly in corners. Regular customers knew her by name, and she knew their usual orders by heart. It was a good laugh. A simple laugh. Nothing like the one she had imagined 5 years ago. Near the window, her daughter Emma sat at a small table, her blonde pigtails bobbing as she colored in a princess coloring book. She was 4 years old now, with bright blue eyes and a smile that could light up the darkest room. She hummed softly to herself, completely absorbed in staying inside the lines. Sarah glanced at her daughter and felt the familiar mixture of love and protective fierceness that always filled her chest. Emma was her entire world. Her reason for everything. The bell above the door chimed, announcing a new customer. Sarah looked up with her professional smile already in place, ready to greet whoever had walked in. The smile froze on her face. Standing in the doorway, looking older and more polished than she remembered, was Michael Harrison. He wore a crisp white button-down shirt and navy dress pants that spoke of money and success. His dark hair was styled perfectly, and there was an air of confidence about him that hadn't been there 5 years ago. He had grown into himself, become the man he had always promised he would be. The man who had left her when she needed him most. Michael's eyes swept across the cafe, taking in the cozy atmosphere, before landing on Sarah behind the counter. His expression shifted through several emotions in rapid succession: surprise, recognition, uncertainty. "Sarah," he said, his voice carrying across the quiet cafe. Sarah's hands gripped the edge of the counter. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Of all the cafes in the city, why had he walked into hers? "Michael," she managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. He approached the counter slowly, as if unsure of his welcome. As if he had any right to be unsure after what he had done. "I had no idea this was your place," he said. "I'm in town for a business meeting. Someone recommended this cafe." He gestured vaguely around. It's really nice. You did well." Sarah said nothing. What was there to say? "Thank you for the compliment after you abandoned me. Can I get a coffee?" Michael asked, his tone careful. "Just black. And maybe we could talk? I know I don't deserve it, but—" "One black coffee," Sarah interrupted, her voice professional and cold. "Coming right up." She turned to the espresso machine, grateful for something to do with her hands. As she prepared his drink, her mind raced. 5 years. 5 years since the night she had told him she was pregnant and watched his face drain of color. 5 years since he had said he wasn't ready, that he had too many plans, that a baby didn't fit into his future. 5 years since he had walked out of her apartment and never looked back. Sarah had been terrified and alone, working at her father's restaurant, barely scraping by. But she had been determined. She had worked through her pregnancy, saved every penny, and after Emma was born, she had worked even harder. The cafe had been a dream, something to build toward, something to give her daughter. And she had done it. Without him. She slid the coffee across the counter. $3.50, she said flatly. Michael pulled out his wallet and handed her a $5. "Keep the change." He hesitated, his hand resting on the cup. "Sarah, I know you probably hate me. I deserve that. But I've thought about you over the years. About that night. About the choice I made. I was young and stupid and scared, and I... Excuse-me. Excuse-me." The small voice cut through Michael's words like a bell. Both adults turned to see Emma standing beside Michael, her coloring book clutched to her chest. She looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. You're blocking my view of the window, Emma said seriously. I like to watch the leaves fall. Michael blinked down at her, seemingly at a loss for words. A smile tugged at his lips despite the tension in the moment. Sorry about that, he said, starting to move aside. But Emma didn't move. She continued to stare up at him, her small face scrunched in concentration as if trying to solve a puzzle. Sarah's heart had stopped beating. She watched, frozen, as her daughter studied Michael's face with unusual intensity. Then Emma's eyes went wide. Her mouth fell open in surprise and wonder. Daddy, she whispered. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Michael's coffee cup slipped from his hand, clattering onto the counter and splashing dark liquid across the wood. His face had gone completely white. He looked from Emma to Sarah and back again, his mouth opening and closing without sound. Sarah felt the world tilt sideways. Her hands gripped the counter so hard her knuckles turned white. Emma, she said, her voice barely working. Sweetie, what, why did you? But Emma was still staring at Michael with absolute certainty in her young face. She pointed at him, then at the wallet he still held, where a driver's license was visible in the clear pocket. That's the picture, Emma said. The one in Mommy's box. The one she looks at when she's sad. Sarah's breath caught. The old shoebox in her closet. The one with a few photographs from before, from when she and Michael had been happy. She thought she had been so careful, looking at them only late at night when Emma was asleep. But children saw everything. Michael turned to Sarah, his eyes swimming with questions and emotions she couldn't begin to name. Sarah, he said hoarsely. Is she mine? The cafe had gone completely silent. Even the jazz music seemed to have faded away. Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes, years of anger and hurt and loneliness threatening to spill over. Yes, she whispered. Emma is your daughter. Michael's legs seemed to give out. He sank into the nearest chair, his eyes never leaving Emma's face. The little girl watched him with open curiosity, unaware of the earthquake she had just triggered. I didn't know, Michael said, looking up at Sarah with devastation written across his features. Why didn't you tell me? You left, Sarah said, her voice breaking. You said a baby didn't fit your plans. You made your choice, Michael. He made mine. He gave Emma a laugh. I could laugh. Without you. Mommy, why are you crying? Emma asked, her voice small and worried. Sarah wiped her eyes quickly. I'm okay, sweetheart. Why don't you go back to your coloring? But Emma didn't move. She looked at Michael again, her head tilted to one side. Are you really my daddy? Michael opened his mouth, closed it, then looked helplessly at Sarah. She saw the question in his eyes, asking permission for something she had never planned to give. But looking at her daughter's face, so full of innocent hope, Sarah felt something shift inside her. Emma had never asked about her father before, had seemed content with just the two of them. But maybe Sarah had been seeing what she wanted to see. Maybe Emma had been holding questions inside, waiting for the right moment. Yes, Sarah heard herself say. He's your father. Emma's face broke into a brilliant smile. She reached out and took Michael's hand with perfect trust, the way only a child could. I'm Emma, she said proudly. I'm 4 years old. I like princesses and hot chocolate and when mommy reads me stories. Michael's eyes filled with tears. He looked at his daughter's small hand in his, and Sarah watched something break open inside him. I'm Michael, he said softly. And I've made a lot of mistakes, Emma the biggest one was not being here for you. He looked up at Sarah again, and this time she saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Real pain. Real regret. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. From either of you. But if you'll let me, I want to try to make things right. I want to know my daughter. I want to be part of her life, if that's possible. Please. Sarah stood behind her counter, looking at the man who had broken her heart and the daughter who had healed it. 5 years of hurt warred with the small spark of hope she saw in Emma's eyes. This wasn't a fairy tale. Michael couldn't simply walk back in and erase the years of struggle, the nights of crying herself to sleep, the fear and loneliness she had endured. But Emma deserved a chance to know her father. And maybe, just maybe, people really could change. We'll start slow, Sarah said finally. Very slow. And the first time you hurt her, the first time you let her down. I won't, Michael interrupted. I swear to you, Sarah. eBay grown up. I've built a successful company, but I've been empty. I didn't understand what I had walked away from. Please. Give me a chance. Sarah took a deep breath. Saturday afternoons, she said. You can come by on Saturday afternoons. We see how it goes. Emma bounced on her toes, clapping her hands. Can we get ice cream, Daddy? The word, Daddy, seemed to hit Michael like a physical blow. He wiped at his eyes and nodded, unable to speak. As Sarah watched them, her daughter's hand in her father's, she felt the tight knot of anger she had carried for 5 years begin to loosen. Not disappear, it would be a long time before that happened. But loosen enough to let a little light through. Outside, the autumn leaves continued their gentle dance. Inside the morning cup, something new was beginning. Something fragile and uncertain, built on broken pieces and second chances. But it was a beginning nonetheless. And sometimes, Sarah thought as she watched Emma's delighted smile, beginnings were enough.